migrants, all right? This is not necessarily an argument that would actually fly for audiences, you know, as far as I want labor protection. It's not, you know, empathetic in a sense. For Sally, the difference between Israel and the Philippines is a matter of displaced filial duty. His is an easier narrative for an audience to connect to. The film narrative focuses more fully on the heartwarming and compelling relationship between Sally and Chaim, a cancer survivor who requested a male home caregiver. Chaim met Sally when he was 82. While not fully understanding the gender configuration of his biologically male caregiver, Chaim takes pleasure in helping Sally through Hebrew poetry, even giving her a gift of a skirt ensemble for Pesach, for Passover. Genuine affection seems to bond these two figures, one attending the end of life of the other. At one point, Sally suggests that the two of them celebrate their 40th and 90th birthdays together. The scene cuts to Chaim's funeral, in which she is the last in the procession. Names of mourning relatives are invoked in the background, while the camera closes up on Sally as he weeps by the grave, remaining unnamed in the litany. But as the audience knows, he has been a vital part of Chaim's last year. So there was a visual disjoint. There's all the naming of the relatives. We have lost Chaim, son of so-and-so, son of so-and-so, the father of so-and-so, but Sally is never named, of course. And of course, there's Sally mourning at the same time. So that's how part of the argument of the film, and creating this sort of empathy with the audience. In the publicity for the movie, the production house writes in its website, quote, "Throughout the world, struggling people cross borders illegally to find work and make a better life for themselves. Mexicans in the US, Turks in Germany, and North Africans in France. But only Israel has a population of illegal Filipinos of indeterminate gender who care for the elderly Orthodox, and for whom they often become substitute children. Paper Dolls follows 5 such men, refugees from families that reject them, who made a home in Tel Aviv." This is the advertisement, the publicity. "Israel's most swinging city. Fast friends, they spend their free time on stage as the drag queen ensemble Paper Dolls, a multiple prize winner at the most recent Berlin Film Festival. The film takes thoughtful, variously humorous, and poignant look at people whose very lives redefine conventional notions of gender, family, and love," end quote. Now, I just want to correct a few things with this particular quote in publicity, and because obviously this is the way that it's being marketed, you know, to create this sort of empathetic argument. Again, I'm not against, but I'm just trying to actually destabilize that it's not an easy argument nor a natural one to create. First of all, the dolls did not cross the borders illegally. All of them came legally as tourists. Right? They became, or with legal work visas as caregivers, metapelet, they're called metapelim for males. They would be made illegal while inside the borders. Second, the marketing interpolates an audience through empathy with the dolls, suffering on the grounds as substitute children for Israelis. Right? As opposed to be, and it's sort of a reversal. No, they're actually taking care of the old people. They're actually, you know, so I'm not quite sure where the paternalism comes in that sense, you know. And of course, substituted for Israelis, and once rejected, supposedly rejected by their Filipino families. There's no evidence of this, that they were rejected by their Filipino families. In fact, they're very close to them, and in fact, and always send, obviously, remittances back home. As Patricia Pessar and Sarah Mahler warn, gender should not be confused, should not be equated with women, but most constantly be thought of as a relationship. Martin Manalansan also warns about the fusing and naturalization of women with nurture in the chain of care paradigm. That this is a reproductive woman who cares and love, and therefore is taking care of another family, but therefore neglecting her own, and therefore it's also what she really wants in life is actually to simply take care of her own family back home, and this is the only way she can take care of the family, and it's always imagined within a domestic, reproductive sort of sense of the word woman. It essentializes the very category of women, and essentializes the very category of family that might be variant, even if we just take two notions of American or Israeli as opposed to a Filipino notion of family or woman. We have to think of gender as a relationship, obviously, as a system, as we all know. Furthermore, the fusing of third world labor taking care of both the vulnerable but more privileged bodies also naturalizes such a relationship in the, quote, pathos of dislocated biological motherhood into dislocated family care. While the film is a counterfactual to the gender equals woman question, clearly these are not women, but that's the obvious sort of argument, the film makes use of this visuality of feminized male bodies to recreate this chain of care paradigm. Okay, that is to say, it is important for the film for these caregivers to be feminized, in feminine positions, to be as close to women as possible, but not quite, etc., etc. We care about the dolls, and also we observe the degree to which we cathect to the subject at hand. We don't cathect as much to, or have an attachment to Jan as we do with Sally, let's say. Precisely because of the visual cues of that Jan and Sally represent as far as gender performance is concerned. We care about the dolls because they care for the elderly as if they were family. Only within the paradigm of family and gender configuration are we as audience members to care about these caregivers. Okay? However, the other dolls, unlike Sally, do not fare as well in this obvious show of palabas and affection. Here, it is helpful to evoke once again the double sense of palabas, as show in emotional output. The camera follows Jan in his daily duties, you saw her, but Jan does not manifest the genuine care that Sally does. He and others perform their prosthetic functions without obvious affection nor tender interaction with their charges. Unwittingly, the film implies a punitive conclusion for those who cannot perform the labor of affection and grief. Jan remains stoic while working, and also in the face of his possible deportation when he is fired. He doesn't react badly. He actually reacts defiantly. You know, that's not good for an argument in the film about the fact that we should care about caregivers. All right, so the focus is not on Jan; it's going to be on Sally. We might then recall and reread the club promoters' criteria for rejecting some of the dolls for the TLV performance. Quote, "It's not about being pretty." Jan, remember, was rejected, but I want to reread this as the notion of who do we deport, who do we keep, who is deserving of care and protection and who is not. It's not about being pretty. It's about who has the right mimics, the professionalism. As Flores continues in his explanation of palabas, quote, "It is a matter of conjuring, tricking the eye, catching the feeling, concealing the device of drama. And because it is tactical, it is also corruptive. Semblance is always elusive," end quote. Jan refuses the employer access to this other part of his life. Here lies the taxi driver's suspicions. These workers might not actually care about their charges, as if they were substitute children. The lip sync performance of the dolls is in fact perhaps the only authentic labor of love, as I mentioned. But then caregiving might simply be the alienated performance going through the motions without emotion. This labor of love might not be about displaced filial love that may be perceived as so natural to Filipinos. The Filipinos have a reputation, oh, they're the best caregivers in the world, because they have a natural affinity to caring. Now, culturally speaking, Filipinos might care for their parents, etc., but this is not intrinsic, right? This is, of course, a skill set that is separate from the notion of feeling care. This revision ceases to highlight and naturalize genuine care and affection that justifies the protection of the feminized or the poor third world other. Their livelihood and survival and their family's survival in the Philippines depends on the exact mimic, gaya, copy, professionalism, and repertoire of skill sets and abstracted model of someone who really cares. It is the performance of a lifetime. This becomes the labor of love, right? The notion of to be able to perform care. All right, so I'm now reversing the fact that care itself is the performance and not the lip sync direct act. So let me just show you one more final clip and I will conclude. Which is 116.
Comfortable now. Right.
My back's hurting. My back's hurting. My back. My back.
Okay. Take care.
I will.
Okay. Bye.
What did you say?
We have a show. We have a show tonight. Yeah, a show tonight. The name is Paper Dust in Israel. No, a show.
A show.
Yeah, we're having a show tonight. Paper Dust from Israel. Okay.